Wickham and cruising a Jordan Rhodes hat-trick, helping them along there. It's Manchester United 1, Derby 0, the sides coming out for the second half.
Lovely scenes.
Ah, yeah, the old muckers, Jose Mourinho and Frank Lampard, so warm and affectionate to be talking behind each other's hands.
They're doing the old Con Houlihan, covering the mouth with the hand, which seems a bit... So they're just trying to... so people can't lip read them.
Have you not seen this in football generally across, like,
maybe
in the wider football world in the last year? Literally, it's everywhere. Anytime people are going off half-time, they're like...
I don't watch them at half-time, I guess.
Yeah, hands over the mouth at all times.
I guess it makes sense, yeah.
They're like sly 9-year-olds in school.
Yeah, because the boy Mourinho is under duress at the moment, like...
We were talking about this before, like this nonsense, and it wasn't thrust upon by Sky Sports in their interview before the match. We're just watching Burton's equaliser at home to Burnley. Like this Paul Pogba story that he won't be given the captaincy anymore because of his, well, we assume, outspoken views after that 1-1 draw with Wolves. And he's being rested tonight, so he's nowhere near the squad. Yeah,
he's wearing particularly notable clobber as well, wearing this kind of distinct white hoodie with some sort of golden affectation or something in the stand.
He's gone full Memphis Depay on it, hasn't he?
Yes, but you just can't help but think this is a power struggle that Mourinho's probably going to lose in terms of where Man United are going as a club and as a brand.
But you know what? It's not inconceivable that United are going to lose on both fronts because Mourinho, we would imagine, won't be there next year as a manager. I would say that Paul Pogba won't be there as a player either. So they're in a situation whereby this power struggle between the two is ultimately going to leave in both sides of it leaving.
They're possibly better off without Pogba in the sense of, like, he's not a good professional, clearly. You know, you don't do what he did on Saturday and you don't throw a strop in games like he did. What was their second game of the season? They lost at Brighton, was it? He's not a good professional, and he might have disagreements with how Mourinho plays, but you do your job. You do your job for the fans, and you do your job for yourself as a pro on whatever he's on a week. In my view, anyway, I think he should.
Yeah, I just think that's the kind of weirdly the professional we're in. Yeah, we're in the Neymar territory, we're in the Paul Pogba territory, whereby these higher earners in football kind of feel like they don't have to try a leg once they get to a certain level, A-grade wise.
So is the team better off with that kind of character in it, or is the team better off with an earnest but slightly less able player? I would say the latter, to be honest.
I'd say probably had to get somebody of equal ability for, kind of the same money, maybe even a bit less.
They're
without the arsake for them.
Yeah,
and that's what it's going to be for them for the next 2 years if they keep him.
Who's of equal ability to Pogba? In terms of ability, though, he's insanely. I think he is.
Is he? How have we seen this on a sustained basis? Like, because we constantly hear. Well, this is the thing we often hear, and it's.
I'm talking about, I suppose, ability, but sustained basis, no.
Because we often hear it's like, oh well, for Juventus, like who's actually watching Juventus' 38 games of the season?
The World Cup was good. The World Cup is good. His pass to Mbappe in the final was one of the best things I've ever seen at any level. His control, his strength, his striking of the ball, his touch for the goal on Saturday. That sort of stuff's amazing. But he just mentally, you can see, like, that second half performance I'm talking about earlier in the season was a disgrace. I think he gave the ball away 28 times in that game. He should have been sent off nearly. So he has a chip on his shoulder. I'm not sure if it's to do with his agent or what, or he doesn't get on with Mourinho. But one or both of these people will lose the battle here, definitely.
Absolutely. One place where there was no real power struggles today was at Porky Queeve, where a Manchester United side of legends beat a side comprised of ex-Republic of Ireland and Celtic players in the Liam Miller tribute game. Our own Kevin Kilban was one of those playing. He also missed 2 sitters.
Richie, I mean, this was
shameful.
It was bad. It was bad.
Like, I don't think he can show his face on the football pitch again. That's what we're talking about here.
I'm not sure he will, to be honest. You know, he's dealing with his getting older.
He is indeed.
Badly.
Kevin Kilban managed the strength somehow within his soul to speak to our own Will O'Callaghan after today's game.
It was quite simply the widest pitch I've ever been. I think apparently it was 86 metres wide, that pitch today, which is basically a full-length soccer pitch, what we would be used to playing on. That's just the width of it. So that was one thing that alarmed us straight away before we'd even got going. But no, it was great to be back. I have to say that it was. I think certainly the first few runs, 1 or 2 of the lads, you're looking around at the faces and you can see that we're all dying. But first 20 minutes or 20 after 20 minutes into the game, we started to get our second wind a little bit, really. So that was good.
Bumped into Keith Andrews upstairs before he did the commentary on Virgin Media. He says his calf is hitting him. Do you win just purely from making it out in the field between the two of you?
Well, I think Keith was worried about one or two of the United players that were gunning for him today. So he didn't want to step out and get embarrassed or become a little bit embarrassed today. That was in Keith's mindset, I think, coming into the match. So he's probably let me down. He's probably let a couple of his teammates down today as well as Keith. So yeah, in that respect, yeah, I think I'm one up on Keith without a doubt. Yeah.
I mean, it's a magic turnout. This place is full to the rafters out there.
Yeah. Oh well, it's incredible. It's coming down even before the game. The crowds lining the street. It's an unbelievable turnout. What a stadium it is, and it's an honour to, you know, I always feel that, you know, honour to play on the Gaelic grounds wherever we go. And, you know, playing on Croker was extra special, I think, as well. But certainly playing here it's great, because I can't see there being too many soccer games being played here over the next few years. So I think that is what is. I think everyone knows the length that the committee have gone to get the game to be played here, that the GAA have gone to maybe in allowing us to play here. So it is an honour playing on this ground with the crowds here. Yeah.
I think, with no disrespect to Turner's Cross, it's great that it got moved here.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that was the thing. We all wanted it. I think once the reality hit us all that we were going to get over 45,000 here, that was maybe we all started to become a bit more nervous. But yes, I think in general, I think we wanted it here. I think the push that came about because of the public, that's what it has to be said. The public jumped on it, and I think because of the public's backing, because of the committee's backing from this game, and I think ultimately then because of the backing with the GAA, I think that's what it is. I think we have to be thankful that everyone came together, saw sense, and we've managed to get a great occasion down here in Cork.
Ryan Giggs was saying, just even from the guys chatting, having a coffee earlier, great community around the United team meeting up again. In terms of the Republic of Ireland former internationals, Dave, you felt that as well?
Yes, definitely. It's nice to see lads that I haven't seen too much over the years. Graham Kavanagh, Stephen Carr, Robbie, Damien. I've always seen Damien and Robbie around Dublin here and there as well, but particularly Stephen and Graham. Stephen Kelly, of course, in today as well. David Ford, who I haven't really seen since I finished playing as well. So it's nice to see lads that you wouldn't necessarily be bumping into a lot. And of course, then we've got Kenny here. I've just seen Kenny have a shot, by the way. I've never seen Kenny have a shot in my life, whether that's in training or a game. So he'll give me stick for not scoring, but I thought Kenny should have scored there himself. But yeah, it is nice to see the faces around the team. Of course it is, yeah, that you would play with so often over the years.
Your own performance, Kev, you missed a couple of chances, but generally, how do you feel about your game?
I created two, so that's the thing. That's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at the positives from that. God, when you miss a chance, Robbie's breaking me balls in there to tell me that I should have passed it, I should have squared it. I wasn't expecting the pass from Sean Maloney when he squared it to me, and I was stretching. But how happy I am with my own game, I would say I was extremely average today. I think that's the way it was.
I'll tell you what, Robbie Keane looks sharp, doesn't he?
Robbie Keane scored. Yeah, I might be able to claim an assist off Robbie's goal as well. I managed to run across Pilkington in goal, so I think that managed to put him off, I think, a little bit. But Robbie's still class. Robbie could still do a job. I'm convinced somewhere along the line anyway.
Roy Keane said before the game, Liam Miller, he said he was a quiet guy, but a nice kind of quiet. There was maybe a boldness about him at times as well. Everyone's kind of been talking about him today. What are your own memories of Liam?
I think that's probably a fair assessment from Roy. There was certainly a little bit of devilment in him. I'm sure you've probably heard one or two stories that said he was always that lad that was kind of very laid back, always maybe a couple of minutes late for meetings, a couple of minutes late for lunch. That was the thing. But a fantastic footballer, a lovely footballer to watch. Great on the training ground, certainly to be around him. That was a good thing. But as you said, yeah, he was fairly quiet as far as I knew him, because he was quiet when he first came into the squad as one of the younger players. But he certainly had that way about him where he could cause a little bit of laughter in the room because of his dry comments that he used to make. But an extremely talented footballer and a very, very humble person. Yeah.
Well, obviously some of his mates like Mark McNulty out playing there today as well. I mean, great that they get to share in this day too.
Exactly. I think that's the thing. So many that have played here, you know, like the likes of Sean Maloney that have come here as well, that would have been friends of him when they come through the system together. The Celtic boys, Johan Mialbi, Stilian Petrov, that have come here and played Paul Lambert. It's certainly great that they've come over to represent Liam as well. I think that is the thing, and representing the family and what Liam stood for. I think that is the thing. But as you say, there's so many that have got the chance to play on the pitch. That's a great thing. But so many that have come to watch us, and I think the one thing that's been said to me constantly is the community of Cork has come together certainly for this occasion, and we've certainly seen it here in the true spirit, the way that it's meant to be played here.
I can only imagine how proud his family are right now. Crucially, I guess money's been saved for cancer charities around the city as well. People look at the football, but that's the great side to this today as well.
Of course it is, yes. Yeah, we know that there is a meaning for this game being played here today, and the money that's going to be generated will certainly go to great causes, not only his family. So I think in general we're all delighted to be part of it. And you only need to look at. I think it's quite telling that the Man United players that have turned up, you look after your own in many respects. You know, Gary Neville, Ryan Giggs, Nicky Butt, Paul Scholes, Roy Keane, of course, as well. Looking at all those players that have turned up, John O'Shea, of course, has played here. He was still a pro, John, that's the thing. So the amount of players that have turned up from United side as well, the huge names that has come here. So I think we can all look at that now today and think, yeah, what he meant to both Celtic, to Ireland, but of course a huge club in Manchester United.
I'm sure you're going to have a good night after this. You're a few minutes off the field. How sore are you feeling at the moment after you've showered and got changed?
Oh, my back's starting to go now as well. I was sore after the warm-up. Honestly, Damien was told to do the warm-up today. Damien Duff was told to do the warm-up. And I tell you, we've come in and we had to sit for about 15, 20 minutes and, you know, the dignitaries and things before the match, meeting Michael D. Higgins, the anthem. And I tell you, that one or two of the lads were even feeling it before we even started the game. So it was a tough one getting going. One or two of those runs, box to box, which felt like 500 metres, never mind 100 metres at the length of that pitch. It was tough going. It was extremely tough going, yeah.
Yeah, we give him a lot of stick, but to be fair, for a man approaching 50, it was actually a really good performance by Kevin Kilbane today in the Liam Miller tribute match. The most important thing of all being the 43,000 or just shy that turned up to Porky Queeve this afternoon, raised a hell of a lot of money for some good causes, helped out Miller's family obviously as well, and just the general good feeling that surrounds that game, I suppose, is something that can't be measured or something that can't necessarily be appreciated. It's huge.
Absolutely, yeah. You know, you think of the League of Ireland, and we were speaking of Derry City, how things have gone sort of downhill since Ryan McBride died, but like Liam Miller and Ryan McBride were both playing the League of Ireland where they were taken at tragically young ages in recent years, and it both really shocked the League of Ireland community and everyone in Cork. I know it's kind of said a lot, you know, everyone, any dead person was a great guy or whatever, but like the love for Liam Miller he was a really humble guy. He got this horrific disease and he dealt with it kind of in a dignified manner, and John Caulfield would have visited him several times in hospital in his last few days, and as a lot of the players, particularly Mark McNulty, was very, very close to him, and it's just a good gesture for his family, and I think it was a nice thing to bring the football community together. It's a pity there was such a drawn out process about Porky Queeve, but
we got there in the end.
Got there in the end, and I tell you what I loved about the photos there. I don't know if you noticed, Richie, what Roy Keane and Dennis Irwin, who of course were roommates back in the day, what they were both wearing.
United gear?
The old Adidas World Cup boots that just don't seem to be popular anymore.
Were they?
You know the way everyone has the fancy boots now.
When did Roy switch from, was Roy Diodora for ages?
He was, wasn't he had a big sponsor deal, but like the Adidas Diodora, the no-nonsense football boots. We also had Kevin Kilbane in a real sop to the GA, calling it soccer.
That was the most worrying aspect of his interview, wasn't it?
He was. If you want to
change from being living here, isn't he?
You can differentiate from football and Gaelic football, but just because he was in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, he didn't need to call it soccer. You know,
he was that close to doing what my dad used to do back in the day, which was with some level of disdain refer to it as soccer football.
Like rugby football is one soccer football. Where was your dad from?
He was from Meath.
Yeah. It's football. It's football.
That's soccer football.
Soccer. Like Kev's, like wearing the Mayo jersey and, you know, putting on the odd kind of Irish twang here and there, now calling it soccer. I'm disappointed in him, but I'm not disappointed in Keane and Irwin rocking up at the Adidas World Cup, and some of the stars on the pitch today, it's got to be said, on a very big pitch, this Kev.
86 feet metres wide.
That is a lot now, in fairness, yeah, like when you're getting on a bit,
which he is, just in his early 50s.
Yeah, but it was a beautiful memory for, like, a lot of testimonials, like, these days are kind of, you wonder, are they justified? But this was a lovely tribute game and charity game to a great guy.
Derby have equalised away to Manchester United, by the way. A free kick from about 30 yards out, curl left-footed into.
This is insane. Richie, this is absolutely insane.
Has that taken a nick off the wall?
No.
I think it has.
What happened here, the ball is going to curl to the right, but then it just
whips to the
left. It
left.
goes the other way. So as a keeper, you're yearning for the old footballs here. That goal is I don't think I've ever seen the ball move like that from right to left.
And a former Liverpool player with it as well. Harry Wilson has gotten that goal for Derby County away to Manchester United, 1-1, and an added boon to Manchester United fans. Samuel Luckhurst tweeting before that goal that Fred, Marwan Fellaini and Scott McTominay were the players out to warm up. So it's going to be a cracking last half half an hour
Absolutely.
at Old Trafford.
I tell you, they could do without not winning this game, man. I know it's League Cup, but anyone who can get a look at that goal, it'll make your night.
Yeah, it will. We shall get back to the latest in the EFL Cup. Goals flying in around about the place, and Dundalk cruising towards the Electricity League title. They lead by 3-0. Not necessarily mathematically done, but it is.
That's over, Richie. Come on, it's over.
It's all but over. They will be 12 points clear with 4 games to go, and with a remarkably healthier goal difference than their nearest challengers, Cork City.
And the relegation thing is toast as well. So it's like 4 weeks of nothing here. Like, you're just kind of a bit of Europe.
4 weeks of Bows.
4 weeks of Bows.
4 weeks of the mighty Bows. And the words
People's Club.
People's Club, indeed. The words Declan Rice could well be bleeped out in this show in the forthcoming weeks if reports are to be believed. But Rice is a key player for West Ham, and the last 2 games have evidenced that. They've picked up 4 points in those games, with Rice playing a prominent role in both. Jacob Steinberg joins us on the line now. And as I mentioned, Jacob, it's basically been the Declan Rice show in the last couple of games. He may not have gotten on the score sheet, but his worth and his value have certainly been proved across the last 180 minutes.
Yeah, the last 2 games even more impressive when you consider that up at Anfield on the first day of the season, Declan Rice was taken off after half-time. West Ham were 2-0 down against Liverpool. Liverpool have run through their midfield, and Declan Rice was really the fall guy, with more senior players like Mark Noble and Jack Wilshere left on. And it was he after that he wasn't in the side for a few weeks. Manuel Pellegrini took him out, and still West Ham's problems didn't go away in midfield. They were still being run through too easily by their opponents. So against Everton last week, they needed to get a bit more solidity into midfield. Back came Declan Rice, very good against Everton in a 3-1 win, West Ham's first points of the season. And then the challenge goes up against a top team like Chelsea, who'd won their first 6 games this season. And again, he was instrumental in helping to keep players like Eden Hazard, Willian, and Chelsea's top midfield quiet in 0-0 draw for West Ham, which is added to the quiet sort of sense of optimism that's building around Manuel Pellegrini's side at the moment.
Yeah, that result against Everton in particular, I think, seemed to at least quieten a lot of voices that were dissenting against Pellegrini in the opening 4 games of that season so far, and it seemed to show that maybe he was just getting them on the right track. And even further still, as you mentioned there, that opening game against Liverpool, Declan Rice looks more and more unfortunate to have been cast as the fall guy for that particularly woeful first half that West Ham suffered at Anfield.
Yeah, well, Declan Rice had played the whole pre-season in defensive midfield, so it looked like West Ham had gone into the season with quite a clear plan to use him in that position. So it was a little bit harsh, a little bit surprising, but I suppose, as the kid, it's maybe the easiest one to take off. Mark Noble's the club captain who's been there for the past decade or so in that position, and Jack Wilshere was making his debut as the big signing from Arsenal, a top international player and everything, and well, certainly a few years ago anyway. So someone like Declan Rice at the age of 19 is easier for Manuel Pellegrini to take off, I think, and I think a little bit of that fed into that decision. But I think one of the big things about Declan Rice is that if you go back to certain points last season where he made little mistakes here and there, you go back to last August when he just broke into the side. He was responsible for an error leading to a Newcastle goal in a particularly awful 3-0 defeat in the particular difficult moments under Slaven Bilic, and he got taken off at half-time in that game. So the problem that he had at that point was just there's little bits of inexperience, but he always bounces back. He's quite a quick learner. If you speak to people around the club, they'll say that about him. He might make a mistake here and there because he's young, but he absorbs it quite quickly, and he's willing to listen to what the coaches have to say, which maybe isn't always the case with some young players. They're not so willing to listen when coaches want to give them a bit of advice here and there.
Yeah,
so he's always managed to bounce back.
Speaking of advice, we know probably to our costs as a country over here that he's gotten a new agent over the course of the summer. That's borne itself out in perhaps his taking time away from the international setup for the Republic of Ireland to consider where his options may lay on that front. And also, we're now hearing about contract negotiations. Currently on £3,000 a week at the 19-year-old. He's looking to obviously improve his deal. He's become a cornerstone of the first team squad and most certainly of the starting 11 over the course of the last few games as well. Contract negotiations are underway. It's reported that he's been offered £12,000 a week. Something that his people have, I suppose, knocked back almost instantly. How much wiggle room is there here? Because it seems like West Ham should and would want to be nailing down and offering as much as they can to one of their best prospects, and especially one that the chairman or co-chairman is described as likened to the new Bobby Moore.
Well, West Ham a few years ago, I think you remember, they went up to Arsenal in Slaven Bilic's first league game, and they played Reece Oxford in midfield, who at the time was supposed to be, the new Rio Ferdinand or whatever. And he kept Mesut Ozil very quiet in a 2-0 win for West Ham. And very soon after that, amid interest from the likes of Manchester United, Arsenal, Liverpool, they gave Reece Oxford a new contract, quite a big contract, and it didn't really work out for him. And they've been wary of going down a similar path with Declan Rice. They don't want to, sort of lead to him getting too big for his boots or anything like that and ruining his development. But I think there's a bit of a difference here. I think that Rice is probably a little bit more level-headed and mature than Reece Oxford was at that age, and I don't think they're going to have the same kind of problem if they were to give Declan Rice quite a big wage increase. They do have an issue here because his contract is up next year. There's talk that they have an option on it to extend it themselves, but the form that he's shown in already for such a young player in quite not that many Premier League appearances, there's going to be quite a lot of interest in him, and of course, as you know, he's played already quite impressively for Ireland. We've got the whole issue over who he's going to commit to. I do think that if he was to change allegiances to England, then obviously after the summer that England have had, getting to the World Cup semi-final, the sudden spike in interest in the England team that hasn't necessarily been there over the past 2 years, again, his value and his negotiating power, I think, will increase.
You look at the role that he plays for West Ham and you compare him against other players of that ilk and of that position, and you one name that came into my mind, and I know has made a couple of pieces in the last 48 hours or so, is a player like Eric Dyer, who hasn't necessarily shown a great deal of form for England over the course of the past 6 months or so during the World Cup. He was definitely not necessarily as prominent a figure as he perhaps would have been in qualification, and this season he hasn't started like the clappers for Tottenham. You're kind of thinking that defensive midfield role for England is up for grabs. You can kind of see why he would be angling towards heading towards the country of his birth, and if that does happen, we've seen the England price rise bump that happens to the likes of Harry Maguire. We saw the figures that were quoted around the Leicester defender in the summer. Clearly he didn't move, he signed a new contract at Leicester, but if he had gone, he could have commanded a top level fee. We're talking in the 70s millions, and with that, the wages to go along with it. You can kind of see Rice's thinking, as cold and clinical as it might be, why he might change and why he might consider changing allegiances if the option's still open to him.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Harry Maguire, before the World Cup, I don't think anyone would have talked about him as a £75 million defender. I mean, 2 years ago, he was playing for Hull City, wasn't he? And not that long before that, he was in League One with Sheffield United. So it shows how quickly the effect in the Premier League that playing for England and playing well for England can have on a player's value. I think that Declan Rice would probably look at that and think, I probably do have a chance of getting in defence midfield or even at centre-back at the same time. I think he's the kind of player that Gareth Southgate would like. He's versatile. I think we've already seen that he's got he's got that kind of strong personality. He's able to learn quickly. I think as well, one of the things that's quite underrated with him, because he's more defensive, is he's a really sharp passer of the ball as well. He moves it very quickly. I think he's got a lot of. I think his technique is very good in that sense. He's got good vision, and you look at the way that he's able to stand up to a team like Chelsea on Sunday. He isn't intimidated as well by the opponents that he's playing against, and as well with England, who have the same issue in Ireland as well, but there's not that great a pool of players to pick from for Gareth Southgate. There aren't that many English players playing week in, week out in the Premier League. He's having at certain times to go into the Championship to look for potential players to come into the squad. So you can
welcome to the club, Jacob. Welcome to the club.
Sorry?
Welcome to the club.
You can understand why. Declan Rice might be looking at that and thinking, I'd actually have a very good chance of getting into this England team at a certain point down the line. Is
there any sense of what way the wind's blowing in that direction? Do we know when we're likely to have a decision coming down the track on the right front?
It's all been quite quiet. I mean, obviously we've got another international break coming up soon. We'll have to wait and see. Yeah. I imagine that you guys are kind of fretting and hoping that he's not going to pick England. He obviously is very much a future Ireland captain in the making, and probably the best young Irish player, if that's where the road he goes down, who's out there at the moment. But I think the effect that the World Cup's had on the English public is going to come into the discussion, I think, for Declan Rice.
On the West Ham front, generally, as I mentioned, 4 points from the last couple of games, and impressively so, away to Everton, then at home to Chelsea just this past Sunday. As I mentioned, it seems like Mauro Pellegrini seems to be getting it right. One of those key things has been Declan Rice being in midfield, but it's kind of shown up that the Jack Wilshere experiment might not necessarily have been one worth trying so far. Not necessarily impressed. Injuries are going to come to the fore again for him, and he's one of those ones that hasn't clicked, at least just yet.
Yeah, well, Jack Wilshere, this time last week, we just heard that he had picked up another ankle injury and he'd had surgery on that, so that's going to keep him out for about another 5 to 6 weeks. And you just kind of hear that news and you think, well, you could have predicted that this was going to happen. It was a risk. West Ham did view it as a risk. They thought it was a worthwhile one, given that, you know, when he's fit, when he's on his day and everything. Jack Wilshere is a very talented player. They were getting him on a free transfer, admittedly on slightly big wages, but at the moment, you do worry that this is going to be the story of Jack Wilshere's career, because also before the injury cropped up, he hadn't played too well. There was the game against Bournemouth last month where he played in a 4-4-2 with Mark Noble, and between them, those two are just a bit too slow to play in that kind of system, and they were overrun in a game that West Ham lost quite badly at home. But you know, it's also one of those things that it could be a bit of a blessing in disguise, that it gives Pellegrini a chance to actually build a more solid team and not to have to worry about fitting in the big reputation, the player with a big reputation. I think one of the problems that West Ham had was that Wilshere was playing instead of Pedro Obiang, who's a very underrated player. It's taken all of West Ham's managers down the years a bit of time to appreciate Pedro Obiang, and he came in against Everton and played in a way I think that a lot of West Ham fans hadn't seen from him in his 3 years at the club. He was much more attacking than before, and he's also very good at winning back the ball. So I think that as well is gone a little under the radar and is helping them, helping the attacking players flourish more, because we've seen more from Yarmolenko and Anderson in the last 2 games.
Yeah, I was just going to mention Yarmolenko and indeed Felipe Anderson. Yarmolenko's name was thrown up, I think, when the international break came around about a month or so. Well, yeah, just about a month or so ago now. His people had spoken already, talking in fatalistic terms about his spell at West Ham, that saying that, you know, it clearly hasn't worked and maybe they didn't exactly want him and they're going to move him out of the club as soon as they possibly can. That that header miss aside against Chelsea, it's starting to look really, really good for Yarmolenko. Ukrainians don't usually settle well in the Premier League. He seemingly has. Felipe Anderson's looking good. If things click, and with Marko Arnautovic fit up front, that's a pretty intimidating looking West Ham side that most sides will be facing.
Yeah, there's the stat that only Mo Salah's been directly involved in more Premier League goals than Marko Arnautovic in 2018. I think Salah's, after the weekend, I think Salah's something like 24. Arnautovic is 16, I think, and Arnautovic is basically involved in all of West Ham's goals. And obviously he was injured on the weekend, so Mikel Antonio came in instead of him, missed 2 great chances other than the Yarmolenko chance. And I think that if those chances had fallen to Arnautovic, then quite possibly West Ham would have won that game. If he comes back in against Manchester United on the weekend, which is still a little touch and go with that knee injury for Arnautovic, then I think that front three could give United quite a lot of problems. And Yarmolenko, I think I wasn't quite sure on him when they signed him. He hadn't had a great year at Borussia Dortmund, and as you said, Ukrainians in the Premier League don't have too great history. If you think back to Shevchenko and Rebrov, guys who came here with quite a big reputation and didn't really settle too well 10, 15 years ago. But after a bit of a slow start, he had a stop-start pre-season, Yarmolenko, because of injuries. That was his first start against Everton last week, and the second goal was really his trademark, cutting in onto the left foot, curling to the far corner, and the miss on the miss against Chelsea was obviously awful, but it can happen to anybody. I think he's starting to show a bit more promise now.
The more starry-eyed West Ham fans over the weekend were saying a top 4 finish is a potential for them. What actually is a realistic finish for West Ham this season?
I think West Ham have had 2 troubled years at the London Stadium. I think when they went into the stadium, obviously they just had the almost push for Champions League qualification in Slaven Bilic's first year. They ended up finishing 7th, got into the Europa League, out in the qualifying stages straight away in the Europa League. And I think they got a little bit too excited that year. I think it's a club with a tendency at certain times to get a little bit too excited. £100 million spent in the summer. Immediately it's talk of, right, we're going to challenge the top 6, top 7. And suddenly, before you know it, you're bottom of the league with 0 points after 4 games. I think given all the trouble they've had, I think they need to stabilise and look. Top half would be an absolutely fantastic finish for West Ham. Build under Manuel Pellegrini, move on from there and keep gradually progressing, because I don't think they have to be in a rush at the moment. I think that the fans will accept it if they see commitment like they saw on Sunday and good wins like they saw against Everton, and the signs of a clear plan, because that's what's been lacking in the past few years.
Jacob Steinberg, pleasure as always.
Thank you.
There you go, Jacob Steinberg speaking to us about the situations ongoing at West Ham. Earlier on, we asked you to tell us the venue of the last Ryder Cup to be held on mainland Europe. It was, of course, Valderrama back in 1997. And congratulations to Peter Kelly, who's won himself a €300 Charles Tyrrell voucher. All thanks to Charles Tyrrell, because life is better in a proper shirt. Hilarious ongoings at Old Trafford. It's 1-1 and Manchester United are down to 10 men.
You can't say hilarious ongoing. You can't. What if you're a hardcore Man United fan? It's not funny at all.
It's gas. Sergio Romero sent off for a handball outside the box. 1-1 there, the latest score. A Harry Wilson free kick, a freakish one, cutting across it with his left foot and going into the top corner. Meanwhile, Manchester City have just gone 3-0 up away to Oxford. Phil Foden, the Chunkfla, has gotten one for Manchester City there, following on from goals for Gabriel Jesus and indeed Riyad Mahrez. Meanwhile, at the New Den, Fulham leading by 3-1 against Millwall. Cyrus Christie has just gotten on the score sheet for Fulham in that one, and they've just brought on a 15-year-old Harvey Elliott at Fulham, born in 2003.
This is getting just grimmer and grimmer. Remember when the first 2000 player came along and it was like, you know, my life might as well end right now? It's getting worse.
The youngest ever player to play for Fulham is playing tonight. Harvey Elliott, right midfielder and international for England, under 16s, has come on for Fulham. They're 3-1 up away to Millwall, and on that depressing note, we'll go to break.
Football on Off the Ball,
in association with the faster than ever Boyle Sports app for exclusive price enhancements on the biggest games around. Download it now. Boyle Sports, time to play.
Moncrief.
Termites, their group behaviour is so intricate that some argue that an individual termite is in fact part of a superorganism.
Those swarms are really intense. You know, in New Orleans, they show up on radar.
Yeah, and these swarms are just looking for sex, basically.
Yeah, basically, yeah. They're just carrying genes and looking to hook up.
Right, so it's kind of like a stag party, really. They destroy everywhere they go and they're, you know, trying to get laid.
Moncrief.
Sponsored by Avantcard.
Back tomorrow from 2 p.m. on News Talk.
You join us here at the Ryder Cup as Team Europe take on Team USA. Dear. Go on, get behind Europe with a Now TV Sky Sports Week Pass and stream the Ryder Cup for a one-off payment of just €15. Search Now TV. Content streamed via internet, full terms at nowtv.com.
Don't wait. Get it now at Harvey Norman, with interest-free finance terms and great deals on home appliances and TVs, like the Panasonic 55-inch 4K OLED TV from just €60 a month. Or get the Samsung American-style fridge freezer from just €33 a month. Why wait? Get it now with interest-free finance terms at Harvey Norman.
Standard fees, terms and conditions apply, subject to assessment. Finance provided by Flexify Europe Limited. For full terms and conditions, visit harveynorman.ie/flexi-fi.
This is an emergency appeal from Goal, urgently asking for your help. Right now, Goal has hundreds of staff on the ground in Syria, providing food, water and emergency support to children and families in Idlib with nowhere else to go. The situation is critical, with over 3 million people trapped in the middle of a major humanitarian catastrophe. We desperately need your support to provide life-saving help to communities caught in the crossfire. Please, make your donation now before it's too late. Visit goal.ie or call 1850 832 100. Thank you.
Off the Ball. This is News Talk.
Welcome back to the show. Bournemouth have just taken a 3-2 injury time lead after Derek Williams, the Republic of Ireland defender, was sent off for Blackburn there at the Vitality. Blackpool 2, QPR 0 is a full-time score. Burton, League 1, Nigel Clough's side have beaten Burnley of the Premier League by 2-1. Sean Dyche's poor start to the season as Burnley manager continues. Fulham, with their child after coming on as a second-half substitute, lead Millwall by 3-1. Manchester City are through to round 4 after a 3-0 victory away to Oxford. Phil Foden getting on the score sheet then. They got a penalties at Deepdale, where it's Preston 2, Middlesbrough 2 after 90 minutes. Callum Robinson opened the scoring there for Preston. Scoreless at Wolves and Leicester. Demarai Gray down for Leicester with what looks like a bad ankle or leg injury there, but they look like they're going to penalties as well. Norwich in the Martin O'Neill derby lead Wycombe Wanderers by 4-3. Manchester United won. Derby County won the latest score with about 11 minutes to go at Old Trafford. Sergio Romero sent off United there in goal. Lee Grant coming on for his debut, and Palace 2-0 up away to West Brom. Patrick Van Aanholt getting the most recent goal for them, and Dundalk leading Derry City by 3-1. Dean Jarvis on goal, getting Derry on the score sheet tonight. Meanwhile, the Copa Libertadores is actually midway through the quarter-final stage for this season's tournament, but we thought we'd look back on a little bit of retro action back to 1962. We are apparently looking back on the game that was the best of Pele we had never seen, in fact, the general wide world. Tim Vickery joins us on the line. This is the thing about Pele, Tim, that we always kind of have to hear, is that we saw obviously these glimpses of World Cups that a lot of which weren't actually carried live back in the day, and that's the most we ever got to see of Pele beyond those touring games that Santos did in the UK and indeed at Dalymount Park back in the day. But the majority of his brilliant games were actually played in the all-white of Santos.
They were. It's ironic, I think, that Pele is so linked with the World Cup, but I don't think the World Cup ever really got to see the best of him. You know, he was a skinny kid, an exuberant kid, but a kid nonetheless in 1958. 1970, he knows everything, but he's much heavier. He's bulked up, and he doesn't have the same physical capacity anymore. 66, obviously, he's kicked out of in the group phase. The one that could have been his World Cup is 62. It could have been his Maradona 86 moment. And if you see the goal, it's available on YouTube. The goal he scored against Mexico in the first game, it's like watching a force of nature. But he's injured in the second game and takes no further part in the tournament. Now, we're talking about the World Cup. There's a missing chapter in what club football on a global scale could have become. Now, the European Cup, and now the Champions League, it starts in 1955. And South America starts its Copa Libertadores 6 years later as an explicit response. The idea being Europe has its champion. Now we will have our champion, and they can meet each other home and away. Now, remember, at this time, there were some South Americans playing in Europe, but the best ones, or most of the best ones, were still in South America. So there was real parity of forces. And this game, this home and away between the champions of Europe and South America, it could have become something absolutely fantastic. It got off to a pretty good start. Now, the Libertadores in 62, it's the third version. Peñarol of Uruguay had won the first two, and they were a fantastic team. And this was a time when Uruguayan football could compete. And they had people who these days would be massive global stars. But in 62, they faced Santos in the final. Now, it goes to a third deciding game. The first two games, both sides win on each other's home territory without Pelé, who's still recovering from the injury that he suffered in the 62 World Cup. But then there's a playoff on neutral soil, on Argentine soil, and Pelé is then back and he tips the scales. Santos win 3-0. He scores two of the goals. That means it's Santos against Benfica, with Eusebio and all, a great rising power, home and away for the World Club Cup. First leg in Brazil, 3-2 win to Benfica. It's very tight, it's very attractive, but Benfica perhaps are thinking that they're the favourites on home ground. And it's this second game in Lisbon. You can see this on YouTube, the clips are there, that Pelé rates as the greatest performance of his career. And you look at him, it's unbelievable. I mean, Pelé, it's nothing like Pelé or like Maradona or Messi with the ball tied to their left foot. The best image I can find for Pelé is when he was running with the ball. It's like the ball is bouncing around at his feet like some kind of exuberant puppy. And he just slices through. It's a little bit like watching that famous scene. Is it Brian Glover in Kes? When he's the big school teacher amongst the kids and he just charges through. Only these aren't kids. This is a Benfica defence. You know, this is a world-class side. And Pelé just charges through them again and again and again. Santos go 5-0 up. Benfica get a couple of late consolation goals. It's a magnificent performance. So you're thinking then, this event is set up to be a huge event in football history. Yeah. But what happens? You got to remember that at that time, travel in South America, even today, is very expensive. You know, South America is huge, and the travel connections aren't great. Back then, before there was blanket TV coverage, the Libertadores, you played it at an enormous loss. And Santos, they had to pay for Pelé and his supporting cast. Hence the fact that they did all these friendlies, including turning up at Ireland and Plymouth and Fulham and places like that. They become a kind of a Harlem Globetrotters of football. So they abandoned the Libertadores a couple of years later because, it just financially speaking, it wasn't worth it for them. They could make far more money. They could pay for their playing staff going round and round the world playing friendlies. So the absence of Santos opened the door for the Argentine teams at a time when Argentine football had gone from being lyrically, romantically attacking in the 40s and early 50s to being the masters of the dark arts in the mid to late 60s with Estudiantes. And then you get games like Estudiantes against Man United. It's just a brawl, and everyone loses interest, especially the Europeans. They lose interest very, very quickly in the annual game between the with the South Americans. In the 70s, when England dominate the European Cup, I don't think an English team ever played it. It either never happened or the runners-up, like Malmo or someone, represented Europe. But what could have been, had Santos stayed in, had the Libertadores been worthwhile, then, as well as looking back on World Cup history and seeing who won then and who won then, we would also look back on this, this club game between the champions of the two traditional continents of football, and it would be full of magnificent moments like the one that produced the greatest game of Pelé's career.
I want to get back to that 62 Santos side, because obviously, no matter how good a player Pelé is, he's not going to win those kind of tournaments on his own. And Coutinho is a name that we're clearly familiar with from the modern day game, given Philippe Coutinho's exploits for Liverpool, most recently, of course, from Barcelona and indeed Brazil. But another teenage Coutinho really put on a show in that Libertadores to kind of bear more of the weight than Pelé did, especially in the latter stages of that tournament.
Well, he was Pelé's centre-forward partner. The two of them actually looked quite similar, and they exchanged passes at absolute dazzling speed and angles. The two of them were like one single force, because you had to be technically good and clever to play with Pelé. If not, you would get found out very, very quickly. And still today, people refer to the way that people of my generation in England or Ireland might refer to Robert Hart and Stephanie Wagner, Stephanie Powers. In a kind of heart-to-heart, people would refer to Pelé and Coutinho, a kind of dual, a dream combination.
It was
but that Santos team. There you go. That Santos team. Well done. That was the battler, wasn't it?
Sure, look, I had to try it. It wrecks the vocal cords, but it's worth it in the end.
That Santos team was full of world-class talent. And Gilmar was the goalkeeper when Brazil won in 58 and 62. Mauro was the captain at centre-back when Brazil won in 62. And perhaps the classiest centre-back that Brazil have ever come up with, a great name. Pepe, the left winger, had a cannonball shot. And Santos, it's one of the freaks of nature, but when Pelé got into the Santos side as a 17-year-old, like 56, they were already a great side. And it's not a particularly big club. It's a little bit like Brighton. Santos is the port city about an hour away from the metropolis of Sao Paulo. So Santos being so good is like Brighton being much, much better than Arsenal. And they hadn't been that good for most of their history, but just at the time when Pelé goes, they get a great side, which obviously makes it much easier for him to slip in, and then they can build a great side around him for the next few years. But it's well worth having a look at YouTube clips of Santos and Pelé in their pomp, and look at that game against Benfica in 1962. Look upon his works and wonder.
Yeah, we just had some footage of the goals and some of the action from the Peñarol ties playing in the background there. It's just remarkable stuff. The strength needed, like we kind of talk about strength and conditioning in players at the moment, it's clearly something that wasn't necessarily trained into players back in 1962, but just the natural ability for players to hold off others on the ball.
On bad pitches
on brutal pitches. Was just remarkable back then, Tim.
Yeah, and I think one thing that sets Pelé apart is that he was years ahead of his time in terms of physical condition. And he really, really took it seriously. I mean, the key to me to understanding Pelé is his father, who was a promising footballer who on the day of his big opportunity suffered a serious leg break that ended his career and threw the family into poverty. And so Pelé, his mother was dead set against the idea of him being a footballer. It's an insecure profession, and Pelé had to overcome this maternal resistance in order to take up the game as a career. So he was going to make very, very sure, given the insecurity of the environment, that he got every little bit out of his talent, that he made sure that he was fit. He made sure that he was in condition. He had fantastic peripheral vision as well. It meant he could see the tackles coming, which helped him to avoid some of those tackles. I once remember him as someone talking about him as a kid, talking about how he'd worked out that if he changed his breathing patterns when he went to chest the ball down, it made it easier to control the ball. And you deal with
that's what I've been doing wrong all those years.
Exactly, Johnny. So you've been missing out on
my bloody breathing.
Yeah. You've been misjudging it all. It's just remarkable fine margins like that, though, Tim. Like, we don't need much excuse in this office to be sent on a YouTube deep dive to go and look at stuff like this. But I fear you've given us a solid week's worth of material to look back upon.
Enjoy it. It's all there. It all belongs to humanity. So enjoy it. It's great stuff.
Tim Vickery, absolute pleasure as always.
Thank you. My pleasure too.
You were talking about it being comical in Old Trafford.
Hilarious, Johnny.
Has it gotten more hilarious?
Full time, and as Duncan Alexander points out on Twitter, Manchester United couldn't emulate the likes of York City and pull off an unlikely win at Old Trafford in the League Cup. For they have gone down, Manchester United, by 2-1 to Frankie Lampard's Derby County. Harry Wilson and Jack Marriott, who got the winner 4 minutes from time. I actually think they might still be playing in this one. They are indeed. They're heading into injury time. But yeah, 2-1 Derby lead away to Manchester United. Sergio Romero sent off for United in that one. We'll bring you through absolutely everything else, round up the rest of the evening scores after this little wee suspiog.
Off the ball on News Talk. Improve performance, reduce costs and increase value. Grow your business with design. One day only, October 10th with Mind Over Matter. Ireland's top creative professionals are donating their time in aid of mental health awareness. Design works. Make it work for your business. Book your consultation at idimindovermatter.ie.
Sell your car quickly at Merlin Car Auctions. And right now you can enter your car in for free, saving you €50. Yes, €50. There are 3 car auctions each week to choose from. Tuesday at 10:30 a.m, Wednesday at 7 p.m, and Saturday at 10:30 a.m. Sell your car quickly at Merlin Car Auctions, based at Junction 10 on the Naas Road, 15 minutes from the Red Cow. See merlin.ie for details.
11 people develop dementia in Ireland every day.
That could be people like our parents, colleagues, friends.
And people like me, who could be someone just like you.
Any one of us can get dementia.
Every one of us can make a difference by understanding more.
It's time to understand together. To stand together with the 500,000 people whose families have been affected by dementia. Visit understandtogether.ie or call 1-800-341-341 from the HSE and our partners.
Buying stuff on appliancesdelivered.ie just got a whole lot easier thanks to our friends at Flexify. Because now the qualifying spend is just €500. And you can bundle stuff together. Maybe get a new washing machine or dishwasher, plus a new TV. Whatever you fancy. Or go all out and get up to €15,000 finance approved in minutes. Flexify. Check it out at appliancesdelivered.ie. Fees, terms and conditions apply. Subject to minimum purchase amount, credit assessment and approval. See appliancesdelivered.ie/flexify.
Off the ball. This is News Talk.
Into the 4th minute of added time at Old Trafford. Derby leading Manchester United by 2-1. Texter says Richie's anti-United bias is an embarrassment to an otherwise professional show. No other present.
Not sure about the otherwise professional show bit.
Pundit partakes in this crap. Been going on for quite a while. Texter, I take your text on board. Thank you for getting in contact tonight. You must appreciate that as a Bow supporter, I dislike everybody equally. So yeah, it's an equal dislike.
Not more of a Rovers thing, no.
Well, I dislike everybody equally.
Yeah.
Don't like Rovers at all.
Yeah.
So there we go. We'll bring you through the rest of the scores going on tonight. Bournemouth are through to the 4th round of the EFL Cup. Callum Wilson's injury time winner, winning it for them tonight at home to Blackburn Rovers, for whom Derek Williams was sent off late on. The Republic of Ireland defender shown a red card there. Blackpool also through. Jay Spearing scoring for them in the final minute to seal a 2-0 victory at home to QPR. Perhaps the big shock of the night before the final whistle goes at Old Trafford anyway has come at Burton, who've beaten Burnley by 2-1. The Nigel Clough's League One side through goals from Liam Boyce Jesus and Jamie Allen cancelling out Kevin Long's opener for Burnley tonight. 2-1 victory for Burton Albion. Fulham 3-1 winners, helped a little bit by Cyrus Christie's third away to Fulham tonight. And as I mentioned, they fielded their youngest ever player at the tender age of just 15 years of age. Debutant there for Fulham tonight. Elsewhere, Manchester City comfortable 3-0 winners away to Oxford. No problems for them tonight. Gabriel Jesus, Riyad Mahrez and Phil Foden, the scorers there for Manchester City. Marouane Fellaini has equalised for
unbelievable.
He has secured a penalty shootout. There's no extra time, remember, in these ties, so penalty shootout, it would seem,
could be a significant goal.
Absolutely could be. He's a guy who tends to come up with them at the clutch moments for Manchester United. Marouane Fellaini,
the crunch moments. Clutch moments. Clutch moments.
Yeah, that's what they call it in sports these days. It's one of those buzz terms that nobody knows what it means. It's grand. Once you say it,
doesn't really make sense to me.
Unless you dwell on it, it's fine.
It sounds good.
Thanks. Elsewhere, Preston have gone out to Middlesbrough on penalties. 4-3. Preston have won on penalties after it finished 2-2 at Deepdale. Callum Robinson did open the scoring there for Preston. Leicester also threw at the expense of Wolves. 3-1 victory for Leicester on penalties after it finished scoreless at Molineux. Norwich in the Martin O'Neill derby have beaten Wycombe Wanderers. A spirited comeback by them in the end, but a 4-3 win thanks to a Jordan Rhodes hat-trick for Norwich this evening. And Palace are heading into round 4. 2 Andros Townsend goals and 1 in between for Patrick Van Aanholt. See them lead West Brom by 3-0. Meanwhile, at Oriel Park at the moment, indeed, full-time whistle has gone, despite a brave effort from Derry in the second half, it must be said. Dean Jarvis's own goal and Benjamin Fisk towards the end brought them back into the game, but Kevin McCarthy was sent off late on there for them. Dundalk, though, have sealed a 3-2 victory. First half goals from Pat Hoobin, Patrick McElhaney and Daniel Cleary. It means that Dundalk are 12 points clear at the top of the SSE Airtricity Premier Division table. They are going to be league champions. Nothing is going to change that. They have a goal difference that is better than Cork City's of quick maths, 25 goals tonight. So the
it looks unlikely.
Championship is heading back, unless there's a capitulation of biblical proportions from Dundalk in the last 4 games. That title for the 4th time in 5 seasons is going to Oriel Park. Tell Johnny he's barred from Galway, says Jonathan Corbett on Facebook Live, until he gives us a winner.
Yeah. Jonathan Corbett, he is a winner in everything he does. Successful businessman, ex-chairman of Galway United.
I think you've probably given away too many details of Jonathan's identity there. Clutch, adjective definition, in sport, denoting or occurring at a critical situation in which the outcome of a game or competition is at stake. Take that word.
What's that based on, though? Like, the clutch is the thing that you do to bloody well change your gears.
Speaking of changing gears, just to give you a reminder, we're counting down to the start of the Heineken Champions Cup, and we've got a very special event coming your way.
Not sure about that segue now.
I think you'll find it.
I thought there was going to be some car related.
Speaking of changing gears, I changed gears in a metaphorical sense.
You just changed sports.
Rugby. It's changing gears.
I thought you were going to here we have a promotion for like Renault or something.
It's a broadcast term.
We don't have a promotion for Renault, by the way.
We are going to be live from University Concert Hall, Limerick. Nathan Murphy will be joined by Brian O'Driscoll, Keith Wood and some Champions Cup in Ireland legends, which we will reveal in the next day or two. Stay tuned. Tickets are free, but you have to register and print them off or download them to your smartphone. The event is almost completely sold out already, but there are a couple of tickets left, so get them while you can. Bear in mind, it is an over-18s event, so visit drinkaware.ie. And also keep your rugby comments coming in on YouTube, text, Facebook, and Instagram, and you could be named our Heineken Star Comment of the Week. We've a signed rugby ball, up for grabs, along with a pair of tickets to Leinster's Heineken Champions Cup opener against the Wasps at the RDS on October the 12th. Speaking of rugby, tomorrow night we'll have Keith Wood and Matt Williams on the show. We'll check in with Nathan and Joe, who are at Le Golf National in Paris.
I might be actually at Wasps home ground very soon for a Coventry game.
The Rico.
Coventry are playing Pompey, and my mate's a big Coventry fan.
And Ronan Curtis has gone well for
yeah, I actually forgot about that, yeah.
So they're going to be in Paris tomorrow night, and Kev's going to be back here apparently tomorrow night from 7 o'clock. We shall see about that.
He'll be talking soccer.
He will be talking soccer, and probably with more of a Mayo accent than we're used to as well. Tom Dunn is up next. Thank you very much for tuning in. Until next time, adios.